What is a 28 to 70mm f2.8 OSS lens? What do those numbers and letters mean? Well, today I'm explaining that for you. The two most prominent lens specifications that you will hear about are focal length and aperture. Let's start with focal length. The focal length is how zoomed in or out the image that the lens projects is. So for example, if you have a very low focal length, such as 15, that's going to be really wide and give you a very wide scene. However, if you have something much higher up, like 200, that's going to be telephoto, meaning it's very far zoomed in. Zoom range, or its technical term focal length, is measured in millimeters. Why is it measured in millimeters? Well, it's kind of complicated and you kind of need to be an optics expert to fully understand it. I don't myself, because I'm not an optics expert, but you don't really need to understand that to understand what the different numbers mean. For example, a 28 to 70mm lens is a lens that zooms in and out. It starts at 28mm, which is pretty wide on a full frame, and then it zooms in to 70mm, which is less wide, it's more zoomed in. Whereas something like a 50mm lens is what's called a prime lens. If you want to see the difference and the pros and cons between primes and zooms, click the video in the cards above. And prime lenses don't zoom, therefore it's going to be at that 50mm all the time. The other very prominent lens specification is aperture. Aperture is how large the iris in your lens is. The iris is the hole in your lens that lets light through the glass. And most lenses can control how big or how small that aperture is. In other words, how much light is let through. This is measured in f-stops. So if you have an f1.4, that's a very large aperture that's going to let a lot of light through. But if you have an f22 lens, which is what many lenses' maximum aperture is, then that will be very small and not let a lot of light through. Aperture doesn't just control light though, it also controls depth of field, and this is how much background blur you have. For example, you'll see that I am currently in focus and the background is blurred out. If I move over here, the camera will focus on the background and now I am blurry. And if I adjusted the aperture to be wider in the lens, then that would mean that the background was more blurry when it was focused on me. If I put that f number up to a higher value, such as f8, then that would mean that the background was less blurry. But then there are other specifications. For one is AF versus MF. AF stands for autofocus, MF stands for manual focus. Almost all lenses that have autofocus also have manual focus. Manual focus is where you turn the focus ring on the lens to focus the image, and autofocus is where it communicates with the camera to focus for you. That is why when I move to the side, the camera and the lens will focus on the background, leaving me blurry, and vice versa when I come back into the focus box set on the camera. Another one is optical image stabilization. Depending on the brand, this will be abbreviated as OS, OSS, OIS, or even something like VR in the case of Nikon, which stands for vibration reduction. And what this does is it moves around the optics in the lens, counteracting the movement of your hands to steady the image and make it more stable. Hopefully this explained those wacky numbers to you. Please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any more videos, and if you want to watch more videos now, click right here. YouTube picked this video out for you, so you should like it.